Good evening, everybody. My name is Padruot. The title of my presentation is Obstacles in Implementing Sanctuaries for the Dark Bee in Switzerland. I subdivided my presentation in 4 chapters, if you want. So first, I want to give a general overview of the bee subspecies in Switzerland and in Europe. Then show the results of pre-projects of 2004 to 2013, and then the main results of the projects from 15 to 20 for locations, and then come to conclusions and recommendations. Here a picture of Switzerland. I show this only to show how small the country is. You see from Geneva to the eastern part of the country, there are only 400 kilometers, so it's a small country. Our neighbors are France in the west, Italy in the south, Austria in the east, and Germany in the north. You probably have seen a picture like that several times already. This is just to show where the dark bee, Apis mellifera, was distributed until about 1850. The whole area of northern Switzerland, from the Pyrenees to the Ural. In all, we have about 10 subspecies of honeybees in Europe. And what I'm talking about does not only concern mellifera, the dark bee, but also the other subspecies which are endangered. Some of them are endangered. Some statistics of the Swiss situation. We have about 150,000 colonies, and from them, about 3,000 to 5,000 colonies are pure dark bees. We have about 1,500 beekeepers in this country. The race situation you can see on this slide. We have a big area with a mixture. It used to be all dark bees, but then since about 1950, a lot of carnica were imported here. Later on also buckfast. In the western, in the French-speaking area, we have mainly carnica, but recently also some buckfast bees. In the south, the native bee was ligustica, the Italian bee, and later on also some carnica and buckfast moved in. But basically, the whole country, except maybe the western part, is a big mix. Our organization, mellifera.ch, was founded in 1993. The umbrella organization was founded much, much earlier of the beekeepers in 1861. So the ones taking care only from the bark bee are rather young, 1993. We have about 500 members, 5 line mating stations, 28 race mating stations, and we produce, as I said, 3,000 to 5,000 queens per year. Now, legally, we have two situations. One, legally protected sites, which are shown on this slide here. In the center, Glarus, which is protected since 1977, and is the largest one, and 2 smaller ones. One is very recent, Diemtigtal and Melchtal, which is about 7 years old. They are mainly mating stations. These are protected. Now, unprotected sites, and which we wanted to transform into protected sites, are Val Müstair on the eastern part of the country and Diemtigtal in the center south of Bern, our capital. First, I want now to show the projects which ran to try to protect the dark bee here. It started in 2004 in the Prättigau, lasted 5 years. Then a first project in Val Müstair from 2006 to 2013. And what I'm talking about now is the 2-3-year projects in Val Müstair, Glarus, Melchtal, and Diemtigtal. And Diemtigtal had to be abandoned in the second period of 3 years. So first, some results of the pre-projects, if you want. Prättigau has about 800 colonies. 90% of them are dark bees. In this project phase, a mating station could be established in Valsaina, but a disharmony between the local beekeepers, there were only 5 Carnica beekeepers and 85 dark beekeepers. Disharmony between them, no full support of the local beekeepers organization, and little or no support of the local president. So this is very important if you want to start a project some area. Today, Prättigau is a mixed area, and Carnica even established a new mating station in Schlappin Klosters, but that in the meantime is also abandoned. From the second pre-project, Val Müstair, it ran from 2007 to 2012. Val Müstair has about 300 colonies and 80% are dark bees. The results short about that period. In 2006, a non-animous decision of the 17 beekeepers was taken to shift to the dark bee in the whole valley. One beekeeper, the Carnica beekeeper, was present, but he did not oppose at that meeting. Then a local meeting station was established for pure dark bees in the area, and they produced during the next years more or less 100 queens a year, and they were distributed in the area. Now the problem that we have here is the Carnica beekeeper refused to change his queen, and he refused also to meet the local veterinarian, the representative of the UNESCO biosphere, or the representative of Prospeceraria, the organization in Switzerland who takes care of endangered species. Here just a picture of his apiary in the valley Val Müstair. Now I come to the main talk, and that is the project the projects that ran from 2015 to 2020. The 4 sites, as I mentioned before. I will show positive results, highlights, problems, and then come to the conclusions. Here, an overview of the 4 sites. We have in the first column the location, Glarus, Melchtal, Val Müstair and Diemtigtal. In the second column, the number of colonies, and you see it was quite different. Glarus, the protected one, has about 1,000 colonies, Melchtal 50, which is more or less a breeding mating station, Val Müstair and Diemtigtal, each one with about 300. The number of beekeepers you'll see in the next column, about 100 in Glarus, 5 Melchtal, and between 17 and 30 in Val Müstair and Diemtigtal. The size of the dimension of the areas you see here, and I'll show you afterwards a picture of that. Now, what was the procedure in this project? It's kind of a chapter, materials and methods. So the first thing that we wanted from all the beekeepers is that they would mark their queens. So there were about 1,600 to do that, 1,600 queens in 2015, and 150 beekeepers. Now, you can imagine that in these 150 beekeepers, not all obeyed exactly of what we wanted from them to do. It's very difficult to have them all the queens marked. Then the most important things in this project were a visual control of each colony in each apiary, and there to identify mixed colonies just by visual observation. And if some yellow stripes or whatever were observed, then it was decided these queens have to be replaced. In case of doubt, a DNA test was made, and after harvest, the queens were replaced. A big obstacle in the whole project was the sufficient amount of production of pure queens, because we wanted not to import queens from other areas, but to save as much biodiversity as possible with the local population. Now let's look at the single locations. First, Val Müstair, a legally unprotected area. Here you see a picture of the valley surrounded by mountains. It is the area with about 300 colonies and 17 beekeepers, as we have seen. A map of it. On the left side is a pass going up to 1,700 meters, and in the eastern side is Italy. It's about 20 kilometers long and wide. Here you see the results of the years where the experiment was carried out from 2015 to 19. I show these results only the total on the next slide. You see we had 300 visual controls, 43 DNA analyses, 226 queens were replaced and checked, and 178 queens produced locally. We also imported their external queens from the best areas of dark bees in Switzerland in order to avoid inbreeding in that area. Now, what were the results in general? More or less all plant tasks were fulfilled. We had the first year in 2015, one hybrid colony at the mating station, and it could be replaced in time. You can imagine the damage that a hybrid colony could do in a mating station. The critical beekeeper tested 12 dark bee queens or colonies and raised and replaced 70 queens in the first year. And for him, we established a small private mating station very close by to his main apiary. 13 DNA analysis with fraction of queen's wings were found to technically unfeasible. To 13 DNA analysis with fraction of queen's wings were found technically unfeasible because of high content of chitin in the wings. So other samples had to be taken, which caused quite a bit of problems in that area. And it was very hard to motivate some beekeepers to change the queens. Then another problem, the Carnica beekeeper did not produce the queens that he promised in 2016. He then claimed that the dark bees were very nervous, agitated, and he was fully unhappy with the colonies. And he said the test has failed. He didn't attend the last meeting in May 22nd to 18 and refused to continue in the dark bee project. So under these conditions, we had to discontinue the project as a whole in Val Müstair. I come to the second location, which is Glarus. Here you see a map of Switzerland, and the canton of Glarus is shown here in red. In Glarus, a political decision was taken in 1977 that only dark bees can be kept in this canton. We have about 100 beekeepers there, and 3 mating stations, and buckfast colonies, which are very close to the area of the canton of Glarus. In red, you see the mating stations, and in blue, the area where the buckfast apiaries are. Here I show the performance of Glarus from 15 to 20. This is not meant to memorize these figures. Again, we looked at genetic hybrid tests, visual checks, local produced queens and external queens, and I show you only the summary of the whole 6 years on this slide here. What is very impressive is that we produced nearly 1,000 queens in these years, and 224 DNA analysis. So you see quite an effort was made in this area here. All plant tasks were more or less fulfilled, but unfortunately, one of the 3 mating stations had to be abandoned because of yellowness of the descendants of queens that were mated there. But on the other hand, the new mating station could be set up in 2016. In Melchtal, which is one of the site values of the Glarus, 70 DNA analyses were taken, 3 were negative, and in time, in spring, they could be, the queens could be, or the colonies could be replaced. So we have a high purity of local bees here in that area. This area here is shown. This is the Melchtal, and we can say that in that area, fortunately, we have nearly 100% dark bees. Problems. From 10 DNA analysis outside Melchtal in 2015, when we began, 5 of them, that means 50%, were negative or hybrids. So we have an indication that we have a high introgression in the area close to the Melchtal. And another personal problem we have there, we have 2 groups, a fundamental group, which believes in morphology and selecting pureness only based on wing measurements. And we have another group, I call them the progressive group, and they put their emphasis on results carried out with DNA or on a molecular basis. One big problem is the 3 bulk-fast pressure sites that we have seen on the other side. Now to the site C, Melchtal, which is a small one, but legally protected. You can see here, we have 50 colonies here, 5 beekeepers, and 1 mating station all the way back here. A map of that, the distance here is only about 8 kilometers, so you see it's quite a small area. Fortunately, the area Gental is on the other side of this mountain here, so both together are fortunately quite can satisfy this question of the surface. Now, the results of Melchtal, again, I'll show you only the summary of everything. We had a lot of visual controls there, inventory. We took a lot of DNA analysis. 60 queens were replaced and 43 produced locally. And here again, as in Val Müstair, we imported some queens in order to avoid inbreeding. In Melchtal, all plant tasks were more or less fulfilled. A big surprise came after 2nd and 3rd year of DNA testing. In 2016, 9 out of 19 queens were hybrids, 4 out of 14 in 17, and 2 out of 19 in 2018. So you see the pressure here is also tremendous. Where did these hybrids come from? One beekeeper, and this is not any beekeeper, it's a local bee inspector. He positioned 2016 and 2017 his apidea boxes outside the determined area of the project, and we don't know if he screened correctly all the bees that accompanied the queens for mating or not, and we suppose that he brought in also some drones into that area. Then a big discussion we had once, one queen, which was perfectly black, was when the test was made a hybrid, and the discussion was, and we have mentioned that in this series also, where to set the threshold at 90%, 85%, 95% to declare purity or non-purity. Then the area in Melchtal is rather small. We have to recognize that. I come to the last location, and which is Diemtigtal. Diemtigtal is a non-protected site. You see a picture of it. We have there 300 colonies, about 30 beekeepers, and the mating station is just outside here at the entrance to this side valley. The distances you can see here, about 20 kilometers from here to here and 15 kilometers wide. So it would be ideal for a mating station to be protected here. On this side, I showed you the project as we started out in 2015 with the visual controls, the analysis, and so on. In parentheses, you find what we had planned to do. And without parentheses, you see what really at the end was realized. We had big, high targets, and you see only a percentage of them, except the DNA analysis, could be fulfilled. So we had at the first year already quite big problems. If we summarize all what was done, we had 132 DNA analysis. That's quite a large number. 61 queens were replaced and 69 queens produced locally, way too little as what we had planned at the beginning. If we look at the whole area, we had 4 preparatory meetings that took place where the goals were set, but none of them were achieved at the end. The reasons for not achieving the goals were bad weather for queen production in 2015, the work volume we underestimated totally, we had disagreements within the group, we had no or little support of local beekeepers organization, and personal changes during the first project phase. In addition, we had 2 beekeepers who refused to accept support of the local trained beekeepers. We had a deficiency in accepting basic teamwork rules, and private carnic mating station was established in the heart of the protection area by local beekeeper. So 8 from 13 queens tested in 2017 were hybrids. Under these conditions, we had to exclude the Diemtigtal from the project phase from 2018 to 2020. There are some chances in Diemtigtal. A restart is possible with financial support of the natural park. Foreseen is to have a stepwise requeening from the back of the valley going south. And on the long-term term is the establishment of a legal base for a protected main area. Now, on this side, I show now the results of all locations, Glarus, Melchtal, Müstair, Diemtigtal, for the characters that I described before. And if we look just only at the total, you see we had 700 visual checks, about 500 hybrid tests, 400 subprocedures, replacement of queens, and about 1,300 queens that were produced in these projects. The same figures you see here. Now, one big problem that I mentioned is the following. On this slide, you see the year 2015 going down to 2020. For the locations Glarus, Melchtal, Val Müstair and Diemtigtal, the number of DNA tests that were made and the number of hybrids that were encountered in that area. And in this column here, you see the percentage. There is a trend here at the beginning towards remaining stable, but going up again in 2019, going down a little bit in 2020. But on the average, you see we have about 9.3% of hybrids in our best protection area. In Melchtal, the percentage is 20, in Val Müstair 25, and you see Diemtigtal, where we abandoned the project, more than half of the colonies tested were hybrids. So we come to the conclusions. Even after 6 years of intensive testing and replacement of hybrid queens, the average number of hybrids remained high, even in Glarus, 9.3%. So continuous monitoring is necessary and replacement of hybrids. Non-participating beekeepers in defined project areas and apiaries with other subspecies at the border of the conservation areas destroy all endeavors of obtaining pure bees in the intended conservation areas. The second part of the conclusions, protected areas have to be large enough so that border effects can be minimized. Here, just a small table showing the participation of beekeepers as we observed here, and now starting again from 2004 to 2020 over 16 years. In Val Müstair, we had 1 out of 17 that did not participate, Prättigau 5 out of 85, Diemtigtal 2 out of 50. Sarganserland, this was another area that was intended to have a protected area, 4 out of 95. Total 12 out of 247, that means 4% as an average. I know the sample size is small, but still up to 4% of the peoples do not participate voluntarily in endeavors to set up a protection area. So from this, we draw the following recommendations in legal, technical, and human aspects. Legal aspects first. A legal agreement between the community, the canton, or the federal authority, and for example, the beekeepers organization must be established, inclusive sanctions if they don't keep to the rules. Each beekeeper signs an agreement. An acceptance of all beekeepers must be here. The organization regulates in detail all the financial compensations. Money is a very delicate subject, so be very careful in that area. The dimension of the plant protection area is large enough and adjusted to the local topography. This is the first of the technical aspects. A secure mating station in the protected area or nearby should be available in a protected area. There is a high capacity to produce enough queens for the area in order to maintain the local adaptation, local diversity, biodiversity. The operations are carried out individually or in teams, and operations are coordinated among beekeepers if they are necessary. All the apiaries are registered. Our time slot is defined in spring for selection and control of colonies. Rumors of migratory beekeepers can be a very big problem. So they have to be registered. An adequate long-term financing of the project must be assured. Now, the most important area comes now, in my opinion, the human aspects in such endeavors. The basic reason why protected areas for bees are necessary has to be known to all beekeepers, and all beekeepers are well trained in basic general beekeeping. You wouldn't believe it, but we had some in one area that never had bees before and were just happy to get every year a new queen, and with them they worked, and that was all. The technical support is accepted, competent regional and local project management is available, and support of the board of the local beekeepers organization is vital. If you have people in the area which have a job in the association and opposed to it, then it's very difficult to realize anything. Continuous education is absolutely necessary. So to summarize, the dart bee can be saved in an area of Switzerland if we reach 100% agreement of all involved stakeholders about this very valuable goal. Here are a last slide that I show you, and this is what FedCan has on his homepage. They are saying here, pour sauver la baignoire, il faut une protection juridique des conservatoires. So exactly the same claim. If you want to save the dark bee, you have to have a legal protection. Well, the team that is carrying out more or less this project is shown here. And with that slide, I want to thank you for your attention and wish you a nice evening. Thank you.